So are we concerned about a trade war with China? How severe would it be? But most importantly, how would it affect you as a consumer? Joining us to talk about that is our resident expert, Kristin Bentz. Kristin, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Did I set it up well enough? Is that kind of where we're at? Is it a wait and see thing with China, how impactful these tariffs are going to be? Or do you know what this is going to be?
Well, I mean, I think we all know what this is going to be. And there's been a lot of fear mongering out there in the media, kind of, ginning up the consumer and scaring them as if we aren't scared enough with 2025 as it is. But remember, tariffs are something, it's a tool that are used to basically induce behavior. Okay, behavior of other countries. So I know people are worried and they think we're going to have this long-term tariff situation with Trump. We're not. Thank God we have an actual deal maker in the White House now. And so he is squeezing these countries to get what he wants out of them. So China really isn't that reliant on the US as much as you would think. Now, do they need us? Absolutely. But 15% of their goods come in through the United States. So they're much less reliant than Canada and Mexico are. Obviously, they have rare earth elements that we desperately need and we want those. So we want to keep them in the fold. But they really need us. And so Trump was the only one that got this TikTok deal to go through, not Congress. And so if you're in the CCP, you really want to pay attention to Trump. And they want this TikTok deal to go through. So I think this will be a bargaining tool, just like Mexico and Canada. What was it? Trudeau lasted maybe 2 hours before he caved to Trump. So I don't think this will be this prolonged trade war that people are fussing about.
So when it comes to China and their economy, because haven't they been in a fairly bad spot for a while and they're trying to climb out? So tariffs against their goods could really damage their climbing out of the hole they've been in, right?
Absolutely. And I follow all sides of the economy and all forms of the consumer, but the luxury consumer was hit especially hard, and no one dealt that blow worse than China. So they're just now coming out, which means luxury good stocks are finally starting to perform a little bit better because that consumer really stopped traveling, stopped buying, and that really hurt the luxury industry. So yes, they've been in a terrible spot and they're trying to climb out. So this is not going to help them. So honestly, I do think that they will take heed. I think this is a tempest in a teapot, and I think that this will probably be over in about 30 days or less.
Kristin Bentz is joining us. She's a retail analyst and an expert on consumer spending. So we've talked about the luxury brands, but our own Patricia Valencia is very, very concerned about this. Patricia, do you want to ask the question, or do you want me to ask the question?
Am I still going to be able to shop on my favorite, little cheap websites that I do all the time, like Temu, Shein,
oh my gosh,
those places?
Are you listening to my phone? Did you guys plug my phone? I so love this setup. Okay, so nerding out a little bit with the tariffs on China, and this predates Trump. There is what is called a de minimis provision. Mm-hmm. Okay,
where that's the $800, right?
$800, exactly. Yeah. So, girl, as long as you're not spending more than $800, you're fine.
Okay, I think I'll be all right.
But actually, this really will help. People are talking about, the U.S. consumer, the U.S. is going to be hurt by these tariffs. Actually, this will help eBay, Amazon, etc., compete in a much better way than Temu and Shein, because they've been able to move these goods so easily. And, Mike, if you don't know Temu and Shein, your girls do.
Yeah, I don't. I'm addicted to Amazon. That is for sure. I get the daily updates on the deals they found for me based on my purchase history. So,
and I'm a mom.
I know.
I need the cheap
Dude,
clothes.
AI is a hot mess, right?
Yep.
I mean, they just they get you between the eyes every time.
Yeah, it even reminds me to buy paper plates. I mean, it tells me it looks like you're running out of paper plates. You want to reorder them. I look in the cupboard. I'm like, damn, they're right. I'm running out of paper plates.
They even know your eating habits.
I know, Mike, we got to talk about that. Do better, man.
Yeah, I know. So let me, on a serious note with this, the implications, and people are concerned, and I understand some of it may be fear-mongering. Worst case scenario, what could happen worst case in your mind?
With China alone, or with all
with China,
Canada,
with China,
China, Mexico?
With China.
Okay, so, the price of your iPhone might go up, or the parts that go in it. Obviously, I told you about the rare earth elements, which the United States desperately needs. So that might be something that we have to, that would not be great for the United States. But you, the U.S. consumer, honestly, I mean, maybe toys, maybe chips, something of that nature. But I truly don't even think this is going to last long enough to flow through to the US consumer. Should you be concerned? Absolutely. I think it's fantastic that we have a president that is willing to use every bargaining chip that he has. Clearly, China has more tools in the toolbox than Canada or Mexico does. And, they've actually been reducing their trade deficit to the United States for quite a bit. So I honestly think this will be over sooner rather than later. And I don't think the U.S. consumer has a lot to worry about regarding that.
All right, so I have two consumer questions that don't have to do with tariffs. First of all, can you give us an update on the possibility of the East Coast and the port strike? Because it seemed like that's gone away. Is that gone? Is that over with? Has that been resolved? Or is that something that's going to come back and scare us?
Well, I think, there's been a lot of look, a squirrel, as far as the news cycle goes. And that's a tactic of the Trump White House, just to keep things going with shock and awe so you don't pay attention to other things that are happening. I'm not saying it's unique to the Trump White House. It's a tactic that's used by many administrations. I don't think this is going away. I think for now, it's kind of bubbling beneath the surface. But if you're really watching the way Trump works, these longshoremen and ports better mind their P's and Q's, because a la Reagan and the air traffic controllers, he's not going to play with them. So, they do have some leverage at the moment, but honestly, I would be very, very careful if I was on the port side to try to induce, a port strike right now, especially with California being on, three-legged dog status. I think it would be very unwise for them to tangle with him at this moment. So I think it's just kind of status quo for now, but I'm definitely keeping my eyes on it.
All right, so the last question has to do with the consumers and what we're all worried about. There is a new phase I just read this morning in avian flu, which is affecting the egg market because so many hens have been dying, and there's a new phase of this that it's still ongoing. Even Waffle House has announced they're doing a 50-cent egg surcharge at their restaurants. How bad could this get? Is it going to continue to get worse?
Well, I mean, literally, let's go back to your biology class, right? And sex education. You can't just create eggs overnight. And so these flocks need time to regenerate. And unfortunately, that's going to take some time. So this was already a problem. And, you and I talked about this, about a year ago when inflation was so high. Exactly. And your listeners are so clever. And if they do listen to us, we do give them news that they can use. But a lot of these hatcheries and chicken producers, et cetera, a lot of them had caught fire mysteriously last year. There was a lot of weirdness going on within the poultry industry. There's been price fixing for years. We all know that. Eggs, I mean, gosh, I think they're $8 at Walmart, Costco, if you can even find them. They had their own problem with tainted eggs and salmonella, and that was a nightmare. So they pulled all those eggs and destroyed that product. So it definitely will be high for a while. And, consumers, unfortunately, Adam Smith and the invisible hand of markets, consumers will absorb inflation. That's what we've all done for the past 4 years. I'm not saying that it's a good thing, but consumers will either seek alternatives to eggs, and you just, won't be having that omelet when you go out to brunch, or they'll find different ways or different retailers that have better deals in order to seek out those eggs at a lower price.
Love the conversation as always. You want to tell people where to find you on social media?
Sure. You can find me on X at Kristin Bentz. It's the only account I have. And on Instagram, for a little bit more fun, you can follow me at Kristin C. Bentz.
Thank you so much as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, Mike.
All right, that's Kristin Bentz spending a few minutes with us talking the implications of tariffs. She's not really worried on that front, but also the conversation about what will happen next with China.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Catch up on Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast, and click the button in the middle to subscribe.